There are dances not meant for humans. Some mirrors don't just reflect your image, but watch your every move, memorize them, and start mimicking. And there are shadows, once they appear, that never vanish, even when you turn off the lights. Tonight, you will step into 3 horror stories, all revolving around ballet. From a college student who realizes her reflection in the mirror no longer moves in sync, to a teacher who casts no shadow, and a TikTok challenge that accidentally opens the door for a doppelganger from the other side. Each story is a bizarre, layered world where art is not just emotion. It's a ritual, a calling from another realm. If you're into chilling tales rich in imagery and emotion, I invite you to hit that subscribe button today. Every single subscription is not only a precious support, but also the drive that keeps me diving deeper into the darkest corners of the human mind. I am truly grateful for that. And now, let the music play. Take one last look in the mirror, and never, ever turn your back. Emily Harper, a sophomore at Newbury Academy of the Arts, wasn't someone easily haunted. She lived alone in a small apartment near campus, was an excellent student, quiet, and spent most of her week in the basement ballet studio, a place most other students avoided. That studio, once a repurposed basement beneath the main building, had low ceilings, dim yellow lighting, and an entire wall covered in aging mirrors, their edges worn and dulled. Rumor had it that the space used to serve as a plague-era morgue. But for Emily, it was the only place she truly felt alive, in silence, in movement, in the rhythm of her breath, and the faint crackle of music from the old speakers. That night was a rainy Tuesday in Boston, and she stayed later than usual to rehearse her solo for the graduation showcase. Dressed in a tight black leotard, hair tied in a neat bun, Emily spun on the cracked wooden floor, her legs tracing invisible circles in the air. She stopped after a flawless pirouette, arms lifted, body frozen like a statue. And then, in a split second, she saw it. The reflection in the mirror, which should have been in perfect sync, was a beat behind. She was already still, but the girl in the mirror was still turning, half a spin, a movement too light, like breath, but real. Emily frowned. She blinked, stepped back. The reflection mimicked her, but slightly delayed, as if it wasn't reflecting but imitating. A chill crept down her spine. The studio was completely silent, save for the rain tapping on the small, high-set window. Emily stepped closer and placed her hand on the mirror. Ice cold, solid as stone. Nothing visibly wrong. "Just a hallucination," she whispered, trying to shake the unease building in her chest. Stress, sleep deprivation, dim lighting. But as she turned to leave, just a split second before exiting the room, she glanced back, and the reflection in the mirror hadn't turned. It was still standing there, motionless, eyes wide open, as if waiting. From that moment, Emily knew. The mirror was no longer just a surface of reflection. It was a door, and something on the other side was watching her. In the following days, Emily tried to forget what had happened. She told herself it was just exhaustion, a restless night's sleep, a stressed-out mind ahead of a major performance. But no matter how much she tried, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. It began with small things. A shadow darting at the edge of her vision during a turn. The sensation of eyes on the back of her neck whenever she turned away from the mirror. Then came the faint noises, the soft scuff of feet across the wooden floor, echoing through the empty room whenever she paused for breath. On Thursday night, she decided to record her practice on her phone, not as proof, but to reassure herself. She set her phone on the music stand, began dancing her solo again. Trembled. The video froze for a few seconds, as if someone had interfered. She hit pause, but the image in the mirror began to blur, not the footage itself, but like a mist rising from the surface of the glass. That night, Emily didn't sleep. She sat in the kitchen, laptop glowing, searching everything she could. Delayed mirror reflection, haunted dance studios, spirits in mirrors, Reddit threads, stories of entities on the other side of mirrors, things that didn't just mimic people, but longed to replace them. The next day, she asked a senior student who used to practice in the same studio. The girl, named Rachel, fell silent the moment Emily mentioned the basement. "Do you know someone named Claire Turner?" Rachel asked slowly. The name meant nothing. Emily shook her head. Rachel glanced around and whispered, "Claire was from a previous class. Talented, solitary, and always practiced in the mirror room. One night, she never came home. All she left behind were her ballet shoes, and a video no one dared to watch until the end." Emily felt the blood drain from her face. "Since then," Rachel said, eyes unblinking, "that mirror won't reflect anyone too long, without taking something in return." Emily gave a nervous laugh, thanked her, and walked away. But that night, she returned to the studio, and the mirror, this time, called her name using her voice. Tuesday night, exactly 1 week after Emily first saw the mismatched reflection, she returned to the studio. In her hand was an old phone set to record continuously, and a small Bluetooth speaker, fully charged. Emily told no one. She locked the door from the inside, drew shut the only curtain over the small window, and played a classical piece, Danse Macabre, a dark orchestral work often used in haunting ballet performances. She stood before the mirror, no warm-up, no bow, just stared. The image in the mirror mimicked every movement, but Emily noticed its gaze no longer matched hers. She looked into her own eyes, but the girl in the mirror seemed to be staring at her neck, then her shoulders, then her legs, as if surveying the body. Emily began to dance. She chose Black Swan, the most demanding sequence, requiring relentless pirouettes and razor-sharp control. But this time, each spin caused the lights in the room to flicker slightly, the bulbs blinking in rhythm. The air grew dense, as if a membrane separated her from the rest of the world. By the 13th spin, the music distorted. The high-pitched violin notes bent into strange, drawn-out tones like a groan. Emily stumbled, stopped dancing, but in the mirror the reflection did not stop. The girl kept dancing, but it wasn't Emily's routine. The movements blurred, her limbs elongating, her spine contorting in ways no human should. Then it stopped, eyes wide, and began smiling. "Emily." The voice rang out, but not from the speaker, nor her mouth. It came from the mirror, echoing like a call from the bottom of a well, dry, brittle, fake. "It's better over here." Emily stepped back, but her feet were glued to the floor. She panted, reached for the speaker to turn off the music, but it shattered. No one had touched it. In the mirror, the image raised its hand, and the glass began to crack from the center, spreading like spider webs of ice. The air shrieked like a violin string snapping. An invisible force slammed into Emily, pulling her toward the other side. She screamed, but the sound caught in her throat, her mouth parched. In the mirror, her double opened its eyes wide, pure black, no whites. One final spin, the double lunged at the mirror, and everything went dark. When the lights came back on, the room was empty. Only the phone remained, tilted on its side, still recording. But Emily was nowhere in the frame. Only one girl was standing before the mirror, dancing, slowly, precisely, flawlessly. And the mirror no longer reflected. It simply displayed the girl like a video. No loops, no pauses. 3 days later, the school announced Emily's disappearance. There were no signs of forced entry at her apartment. The door was locked. Her phone was found in the studio, still recording. But in the final footage, only one person appeared. A girl in a black leotard, hair neatly tied, dancing. She never looked at the camera, never blinked, never stopped. Though the video lasted over 2 hours, the girl repeated the same sequence, again and again. But no one could identify what dance it was. The reflection in the mirror behind her was empty. No one has seen Emily since. No friends, no family, no security footage. Her name was removed from the performance roster. The basement studio was permanently sealed, officially due to structural concerns. But on Tuesday nights, some students still hear music playing from below. Warped, discordant sounds like someone rewinding an old classical track. And sometimes, someone walking past the old brick hallway sees a faint light under the door, with a shadow spinning on the floor. Rumor has it, if you stare long enough into the mirror in that studio, you'll see yourself dancing, even if you're standing still. And if you don't look away in time, the double will notice the opportunity. Because the mirror, long ago, stopped reflecting reality. It is only a window now. And whatever is on the other side is still waiting to come out. Willow Creek High School had an old art room at the end of the third-floor hallway, where the light was always dimmer than usual, and every sound echoed with a strange distortion, as if from somewhere else. It was there that Natalie, an 11th grader, introspective and serious, spent almost all her after-school hours practicing ballet. She wasn't flashy, not loud, but she was impossible to ignore, thanks to her precise technique and an almost emotionless patience. To Natalie, every spin wasn't just a move. It was the only way to keep her mind from falling into the void that stretched between each heartbeat. Everything started to change when the school hired a new ballet teacher, Ms. Marlowe. She arrived mid-semester on a long, rainy afternoon. Tall, thin, with long black hair loosely tied at the nape, and a voice as light as the wind. Students said she had a certain charm, but Natalie sensed something was off from the first moment they locked eyes. Maybe it was the way she entered the room, without making a sound. Maybe it was her eyes, which never blinked, even when she smiled. But what kept Natalie awake all night was the fact that she had no shadow. She was sure of it. In the studio, with sunlight slanting in through the window, all the students cast long shadows on the wooden floor. All except Ms. Marlowe. Nothing. Empty. As if light passed through her, never touching flesh. Natalie told no one. But from that day on, she was always the last to leave the studio. Each time she lingered a little longer, just to observe. And because of that, she saw what no one else should have seen. Since Miss Marlowe's arrival, Natalie began keeping a journal. Not an emotional diary. Notes. Cold. Detailed. Just like she had learned to analyze ballet movements. Every motion, every glance, every offbeat moment. And there were many offbeats. Miss Marlowe never ate or drank with the other teachers, never entered the staff lounge, never went to the office. Every day she arrived when the fog still covered the schoolyard and left only when the hallways were pitch black. Natalie noticed she never used a phone, never wore a watch, and always dressed the same: a light gray turtleneck sweater and a black rehearsal skirt. One late Friday afternoon, Natalie lingered after class. She pretended to forget her practice towel and returned to the studio. The door was slightly ajar. Inside, the lights were off. Only a pale blue light from the window illuminated the space. Ms. Marlowe stood in the center alone, not practicing, not moving, just standing. Natalie quietly sat down outside, peering through the gap. And then she saw it. The teacher's shadow. It appeared for a second, but it didn't match her body. It was too tall, arms almost touching the floor, head tilted at an unnatural angle. And while Marlowe remained completely still, the shadow moved, gliding slowly as if dancing its secret routine. Natalie pulled back, nearly crying out. She ran to her room, locked the door tight, trying to convince herself she was just tired, imagining things. But the next day she was asked to stay after class. Ms. Marlowe invited her to a private session. "You have potential," the teacher's voice whispered, light as falling dust. "But you're missing harmony, soul and body, movement and reflection." Natalie didn't know why she agreed. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the hypnotic way the teacher looked at her, a gaze that seemed to pierce through flesh and see all the dreams she hadn't even had yet. The private lesson took place in silence. No music. Just Ms. Marlowe standing behind her, guiding each move with whispers. Natalie followed, feeling her body slow down, like falling into a long-forgotten dance. Each time Natalie spun, she noticed her own shadow, drifting further from the floor. And when the session ended, she looked down and saw that she, too, no longer had a shadow. 3 days after the private lesson, Natalie began to notice changes, quiet, eerie ones, as if her body no longer entirely belonged to her. First was the shadow, or more precisely, the absence of it. When walking down brightly lit hallways, her friends cast long shadows behind them, but Natalie didn't. She tried it multiple times, under different lighting. The result was always the same. The floor beneath her remained empty. Next came the mirror. Natalie could no longer see herself the way she used to. The reflection in the glass didn't align. Her blinking was off by a beat. Her raised hand lagged just a little. And once, as she stood still, fixing her hair, the image in the mirror smirked. She skipped class one day, but the very next day, Ms. Marlowe appeared at the main classroom door. "You're unfinished," the teacher said, her eyes dark as stone. "You can't break the rhythm mid-performance." That night, Natalie returned to the studio, not out of obligation, but because something within her stirred, a longing, as if an incomplete dance were beating a rhythm inside her chest, begging to be released. Miss Marlowe was already there, waiting at the center of the room. No lights, no mirrors, no music. Only a single candle was placed at the center of the wooden floor. "Tonight is transformation," she whispered. "You've learned the movements. Now it's time to leave the old shadow and take on the new body." Natalie heard her, but didn't understand. She began to dance, slowly, guided by the count in her mind. No music was needed. Her body moved as if controlled by a memory from long ago. And in the final moment of the dance, she spun one full turn, everything blurred, space warped. When she stopped, she stood before a large mirror, now covered with a black cloth. Miss Marlowe approached, slowly lifting the fabric. In the mirror, there was no Natalie, only a taller, thinner figure, ash-gray eyes that didn't blink, and lips curled in a faint smile. Miss Marlowe tilted her head. "Very good. You've held it. Better than I expected." Natalie screamed, but what came out of her mouth was laughter, high-pitched, hollow. In the mirror, the new figure began to spin, a dance no longer meant for humans, and Natalie was no longer outside the mirror. The following Monday morning, the ballet class had a new teacher. Her name was Natalie Moore. Brown eyes, neatly tied hair, posture straight as a bowstring. She entered the room as if gliding, without a sound, and smiled gently at the waiting students. No one remembered Natalie as a former student. Her personnel file stated she had trained at a European dance academy, with little information beyond a softly blurred portrait like an old silver print. And strangely, no one mentioned Ms. Marlowe anymore. It was as if she had never existed. However, among the new students was a girl named Rachel, once a close friend of the real Natalie. The first time she saw Ms. Natalie, Rachel felt her chest tighten. Something was familiar. Not the face, but the eyes, the posture, the way she spun, like Natalie used to dance when the two practiced together after class. After the lesson, Rachel stayed behind at the far end of the room. Dim light spilled across the wooden floor, and when she looked into the mirror, she saw Ms. Natalie standing behind her, but the reflection showed no one, no shadow, no figure, only Rachel, alone in the mirror. That evening, Rachel was invited to a private session. "You have a very classic frame," the new teacher said with a smile. "Just like I did when I was young. I think you'll learn quickly." Outside the studio, through the frosted glass, one could see two silhouettes spinning under candlelight, and only one of them cast a reflection. Chloe Summers, 20 years old, was a familiar face on TikTok. Not exactly viral, but her emotionally charged ballet videos, filmed in her 7th-floor studio apartment, had drawn in thousands of followers. A full-length mirror lined the wall, bathed in soft LED light, with classical music humming in the background. It created a space that felt detached from the outside world. She lived alone, and she liked it that way. In the dark, there was only her heartbeat, her movement, and her reflection. On a heavy, rainy Saturday night, Chloe decided to try out a ghost trend that had been spreading: play ballet music at exactly 3 a.m. and record a video to summon the spirit of a lost dancer. A silly joke, she thought, but something in the night air, the rain, the stillness, the way the living room light flickered, kept her from shutting everything down as usual. 2:59 a.m. She chose Mozart's Lacrimosa, slow, haunting. The mirror reflected her tying her ballet shoes and stretching. Everything was still normal. 3 a.m. She began spinning gently. Smooth transitions, arms raised, heels gliding over the wooden floor. Chloe didn't look at the mirror. She focused on sensation. The air in the room grew thick, a kind of silence, clinging to the skin. By her 5th spin, she stopped and looked at the mirror, and nearly screamed. The reflection was still spinning, slowly, light as wind. But definitely, it hadn't stopped with her. Chloe stepped back, gasping. Her heart pounded, chest aching. She raised a hand to her mouth, trying to calm herself. It could be a lighting glitch, or she lost focus. But while she stood confused, the reflection in the mirror looked up at her, not with panic, but with a smile. Chloe snatched her phone off the stand, shut the camera off, and bolted to the light switch. The room burst into brightness, the white glow washing over her clammy skin. She panted, eyes locked on the mirror. Now the reflection was still, as if nothing had ever been wrong. She slowly backed out of the room, slammed the door shut, and locked it. One thought echoed in her mind: I'm dreaming. Or, I just need sleep. She wasn't the type to believe in ghosts, but she didn't dare go back. By morning, as sunlight poured through the windows, Chloe reopened the video from the night before. Her hand trembled slightly, but she had to be sure that it was just her imagination. At first, the video was normal. She entered the frame, adjusted her hair, and began to dance. But at the 2-minute mark, the exact moment she remembered stopping, the footage told a different story. Her reflection kept spinning 2 more times, then stopped in a completely different pose. And then, while the real Chloe was visibly catching her breath, the reflection in the video smiled, tilted its head, as if listening. The audio distorted. A strange electronic screech stretched out like a damp, heavy breath from the speaker. Chloe immediately shut the video off. In her TikTok inbox, there was a message from an account with no name, no profile picture, just one sentence: "Next time, don't stop halfway. It hasn't finished learning the moves." Chloe froze. Her heart thundered. She blocked the account immediately and deleted the video from her phone. That entire day, she checked every mirror in her home, the bathroom cabinet, the small mirror on the back of her phone. She covered them all with a cloth. That night, she taped a white sheet over the large mirror in her studio. But when she got up at midnight for water, she found the sheet had fallen to the floor, and in the mirror, the reflection was sleeping, turned away from her, even though she was standing directly in front of it. Chloe began to lose sleep. She tried filming test videos again. Daytime, evening, nothing ever went wrong. But every time it hit exactly 3 a.m., the phone wouldn't record, or the footage would corrupt, or the video wouldn't show her at all. Only someone dancing slowly in the empty room. That figure still wore Chloe's outfit, still spun, but never looked at the camera until one final video. The figure in the mirror looked straight into the lens and lifted a finger to its lips. Shh! Chloe began avoiding her gaze. She taped cloth over every reflective surface in her home, even the TV screen when it was off, even the shiny back of her coffee machine. She no longer filmed, no longer danced. Even the faintest notes of classical music made her nauseous. But part of her, though terrified, remained haunted by the feeling that she owed someone a conclusion, as if she had interrupted a performance that wasn't hers, and the audience was angry about it. One night near the end of the month, after more than 2 weeks without stepping onto the wooden floor, Chloe received an unmarked package. Inside was a silver USB drive and a short note. Last take. Do not interrupt. She meant to throw it away, but her hand trembled. She turned on her laptop, plugged in the USB. Inside was only one file, mirrorfinal.mp4. In the video, the room was empty. No one. But about 10 seconds in, a figure entered from the left. It was Chloe. Black leotard, hair in a bun, face, but slightly different, thinner, paler skin, and most notably, her eyes had no spark, just emptiness. The girl in the video didn't look at the camera. She stood in the center of the room and danced. The movements were fluid but not traditional ballet. It was something like dancing, but twisted, as if her joints bent at wrong angles. Music began to play in the file, not from the computer, but from the speaker in Chloe's room. She rushed to unplug it, but the speaker kept playing. The melody rang out. Then her room's door creaked open by itself, even though it was locked. The girl in the video turned her head, and in the mirror, mounted on Chloe's wall, a shadow slipped by. Chloe screamed, rushed to the mirror, ready to smash it. But before her hand touched the glass, the reflection looked up. It wasn't Chloe. It was a distorted double, face deathly pale, eyes black like bottomless pits, and a mouth stretched wide in a smile that reached her ears. Its hand reached out of the mirror and gripped Chloe's neck, pulled. Chloe thrashed, screamed, and clawed at the desk at the walls, but nothing held. And in just a blink, she was gone. The mirror returned to normal. On the floor, her phone kept recording, and the reflection within was of a girl dancing gently, face glowing, eyes glimmering. Except there was no Chloe in the room. No one called the police. No one searched for Chloe. Her TikTok account remained active. Occasionally, it posted short clips, just a few seconds long. No captions, no music, just footage of a girl dancing in the familiar room. Same old mirror, same lighting. But something was off. Viewers began to notice. The mirror didn't reflect. No shadows, no symmetry. Just one image, endlessly dancing, eyes empty like a doll's. One comment rose to the top, pinned on every video. She looks into the camera at second 7. Watch closely. And it was true. At the 7-second mark in each clip, no matter what the move, the dancer would lift her head and look directly into the lens. For a moment too brief to fully register, but long enough to make you feel seen. People began to say that if you watched long enough, you'd dream of that room. You'd be standing outside, looking through the mirror, and inside, the dancer would stop, turn her head towards you. Some tried to replicate Chloe's 3 a.m. spin. Some of them never posted again. Some believed the reflection didn't just learn the moves, it learned the essence. And once complete, it no longer needed the mirror, only a body to replace. 3 stories, 3 fates, 3 mirrors that no longer reflect the truth. When art touches the boundary between this world and the next, you are no longer just a spectator. If you're still here, thank you for staying with me until the very last moment. Your presence, even through a screen, is what keeps these stories alive. Hit like if you felt a chill. Subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next nights, where we'll dive into tales even darker than this. And if you've ever seen something strange in a mirror, leave a comment below. I'll read them all. But remember, if you hear the sound of spinning in the middle of the night, don't stand in front of the mirror and don't stop halfway.